I want to ask you about another of the plaintiffs you represented because it's so extraordinary how focused you are on the details of their lives and how you've kept in touch with them and learned from them and grown with them. And you told me that you're going to see Sharon Frontiero this summer for the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. Tell me and tell our friends what you learned, who Sharon Frontiero was, and what you learned from her when you first met her and were representing her, and what she's doing now.
Okay. Sharon Frontiero was a lieutenant in the Air Force. She married a young man who was a college student, and she went to the finance officer on base because she expected to get the quarters allowance that's available to, she thought, married members of the service, and to give her husband access to the medical and dental facilities on the base. And she was told those benefits are available to men in the military. They are not available to women. His assumption was a man's wife is his dependent, so he gets the housing allowance, and she has access to the medical and dental facilities on the base. Sharon Frontiero couldn't believe that. She said, I'm a lieutenant in the Air Force. I should get the same pay. It was, in truth, an equal pay case. But the Equal Pay Act did not apply to the military. In any event, she won big in the Supreme. And we have remained friends through the years. In fact, I just got a note from her today. She's now a grandmother. And we will be in Omaha, Nebraska together to speak about her case as part of a celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment.
What is she doing now? What is Sharon Frontiero doing now?
She's living in New England, and she's retired, but she's keeping very busy, taking care of her grandchildren, enjoying nature. The other, after Sharon Frontiero, Stephen Weisenfeld became one of my favorite clients. His story is also, his story is heartrending. He was a young man married to a woman who was a teacher in the high school. She became pregnant. It was a very healthy pregnancy. She went to the hospital to give birth, and the doctor came out and told Stephen, you have a healthy baby boy, but your wife died of an embolism. So at that moment, he vowed that he would not work full-time until his child was in school full-time. And he figured out that with Social Security benefits plus part-time earnings, he could just about make it. He would be able to support himself and his child. He went to the Social Security office because he had heard about these child in care benefits for children under 12. And he's told, sorry, these benefits are not available to you. These are mother's benefits. This was in the early 70s. And Stephen wrote a letter to the editor of his local newspaper in Edison, New Jersey. And the letter started out, I've heard so much talk about women's lib. let me tell you what happened to me. And he describes going to the Social Security office and wanting to personally care for his child, but being blocked. He would have to work full time in order to support both of them. And the letter ended, "Does Gloria Steinem know about this?" There was a woman who was teaching in the Spanish department at Rutgers, who lived in the same town. She read the letter, and she called me, and she said, "This isn't right, is it?" And I said, "Why don't you suggest to Stephen Weisenfeld that he get in touch with the New Jersey affiliate of the ACLU?" And that's how his case began. And we are in touch to this very day. I think that he is featured at this museum exhibition. But it was a wonderful decision. It was unanimous judgment. The court divided the reasoning. On the reasoning, they divided three ways. The majority recognized that Stephen Weisenfeld is feeling the effect of the discrimination, but he's discriminated against because his wife, who was a wage earner, pays the same Social Security taxes as a man pays, but her family doesn't get the same protection. Some of the justices saw it as discrimination against the male as parent. Why should a woman only, not a man, have the opportunity to personally care for a child when that parent is the sole surviving parent? And then there was one, the only time in all the cases I argued I ever got his vote. It was then Justice Rehnquist who said, "This is totally arbitrary from the point of view of the baby. Why should the baby have the opportunity for parental care when one parent is deceased? Only if the surviving parent is female, not male." But it was such a good illustration of how these gender lines in the law hurt everyone, hurt women, men, and children.